So I grew up in a very toxic home. As a young girl, I would often wonder if I would get to wake up the next week. It led me having to grow up at such a young age. I came home on my 6th birthday to my mom overdosing. The day to celebrate my life, I was running through my neighborhood trying to figure out how to call an ambulance. But somehow we always ended up going back home. It was later in my teenage years that my mom was diagnosed with being bipolar and severe depression. My mom would often check herself into rehab for a couple of days, only to be coming back after a little bit, trying to take her own life or even one of us kids. It was very tough as a situation to grow up in, as you can imagine. I looked forward to getting to go to my grandparents on the weekends because I knew that there would be a lot of love and joy there. My grandma would always take us kids to church with her. That's where I first accepted God into my heart. It was such a wonderful time. So as we grew up in my teenage years, we moved to Nebraska, and things for our lives went very south. We started looking for our worth in all the wrong places. And I ended up being pregnant at 16 with twins. Knowing the lifestyle I had at home, I was always feared for their safety and what life would be with them. But on August 31st of 2011, I ended up having stillborns in my very late pregnancy due to a twin-to-twin transfusion. I ended up graduating and moving away thinking this is it. I'm finally free from all the hurt and anger. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case though. I would get phone calls from my little brother often begging me to come home because mom was going crazy again. You can imagine the way it played in the house. But eventually it led up to a divorce between my mom and dad. My brother and her moved back to Kansas, and it wasn't until a couple of years later that Sophia and I moved back to Kansas also, meeting at James at this time. James and I got married December 30th of 2015. And as our family grew, we really started feeling a longing for a church home. We searched for it in a couple different places, but just never found the right. It wasn't until we moved to Mount City in 2021 that we found what we were looking for at FBC. As we moved up here, my mom's behaviors never changed. She was still having the same suicidal threats and violent tendencies. Pastor Joe really started helping me dig into my faith, and I realized if I wanted something bigger and some better changes, that with God I could do it. I really clung to Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, to not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. With that, I've learned that boundaries are okay, and they were necessary for my faith and family. Last night, a very dear friend of mine took me to watch the Shonda Pierce concert. Comedian, I guess she is. She's a hilarious woman if you've never seen her, but I definitely recommend watching some of her stuff. She said something that hit me really hard. She was telling her story about growing up in a very similar lifestyle that I had. Her dad was a pastor, but battled depression really bad. A little backstory in what she said. She said, my dad walked into the room one night, told the kids good night, and that when she heard the gunshot in the night, not to get up before he got it. Mommy would clean it up and it would be fine in the morning. She said, I'll just tell you what, if you just let me help you because we're all tired of this right now. And I thought about it. I thought, man, I unfortunately knew that feeling all too well. Many times of having to give my mom her keys and just tell her that life was life and we would figure it out. Shonda said last night though, she said, we live in an evil world and God knew how he would use our pain someday for his glory. I never would have thought that I would have a relationship on that level with Shonda Pierce. God is on the move, struggling on how deep do I say and what do I say today. But it was the little God wink last night that he's there and it's gonna be okay. In Romans 8:28 it says, we know that those who love God for all things work together for good, and for those who are called according to his purpose. Pray that hearing my testimony would give anyone the struggles of a toxic relationship and the courage to set the necessary boundaries in faith. With God, even the small as a mustard seed